loves your energy for this panel, which I hope will be maybe partly heavy, but I'd hope sort of equal parts lightness if we can get there if we're talking about freedom. And Rodrigue, I just want to say that I don't want anyone to think that there is a backup situation. The situation in Congo is something that I think deserves so much attention. So yes, let's get into it. As Lola said, my name is Karen Attiah. I'm a columnist for the Washington Post. And previously before that, I was the sort of founding editor of our global opinion section. So Lola, when you talk about censoring writers who are actually from the countries that they're writing about, that was the inspiration. We didn't want think tankers, Washington policymakers, the interpreter class is what I call them, but that people's voices and stories deserve to be centered, right? So in that spirit, I'm glad to be able to have this conversation today. So let's get into it. This question about freedom, oppression, when I was thinking about speaking to the both of you today, you start thinking about different conditions, I suppose, different environments. When you think about lack of freedom, that can mean all sorts of things in many ways. Of course, in U2's situation, that means war. It means armed struggle, conflict. It can mean censorship. It can mean oligarchs, billionaires who decide to shut down speech. It can mean all sorts of things. So I'm leaving it open for you all to interpret what freedom, what the environment is for you in the ways that you operate as writers, as champions of literature. And so maybe I'll just, Sofia, maybe just start with you, like broadly. Can you tell us, I guess, a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the situation in Ukraine and the environment within which you are operating?
So, hi, my name is Sofia Cheliak, and actually for 10 years, I'm working as a literary festival director, like program director. I am curating one of the oldest and the biggest Ukrainian festivals since I was 18. And it was possible just because of, after Revolution of Dignity, our institutions faced, a willing to be reformed. And all of the parts of our society became really open for young people who were able and had this willing to study fast and change everything in our country to build the democracy. So me personally started to work as director of literary festival. We had another people, we had the ministers being 27 or under 30, the prize 30 under 30 from different medias were had so many applications, and people who was who was good to be achieved. When the full-scale invasion began, I was 24. I was kind of, partying diva, walking at the festival, loving good dresses and standing up.
This is in 2014, right?
Yeah, yes. No, not in 2014, but in 2022.
2022. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big invasion. Russia has done a lot.
When the war actually began, I was 16, so I can't afford good dresses at the time because I was not working and spending money was not really big. And everything changed in my life. So I decided to stay in Ukraine and to be as much possible useful for the situation. So at the first months of full-scale invasion, I was coordinating some thousands of people trying to find some safe place in Lviv. This is the west part of Ukraine or abroad. I was I was organizing the green corridors for first for the humanitarian aid, and working for the national marathon as a host, doing everything. But when we discovered Bucha, and after Kyiv, the occupation, I realized that there is a moment. I was always thinking that I have to serve literature. I am not able to write. There are a lot of people who are better as writers as I am. But at that moment, in the spring of 2022, I realized that I'm not able not to write, so I have to write. So I visited Bucha and like Kiev region in general, like 1.5 weeks after the occupation, and that's how my journalist work has started. Now I'm working for two medias, frontliner media focusing on the war, and I'm a reporter for them, and also I am a war crime investigator for another media, Ukrainska Pravda, is one of the biggest media in Ukraine, the oldest online media in Ukraine, and also for 1 month I'm working as a city major advisor and advising about literature and books. So yeah, this is a short introduction.
Wow, amazing. As we say in the US, we will circle back to some of the things that you said. Rodrigue, bienvenue.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us
working?
a little bit, yes, about, it's okay,
Okay.
about your journey and to introduce yourself to the audience, and what were the conditions, I suppose, that made literature and book reading sort of more urgent for you in the last few years?
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Rodrigue Isamaleki. I hope Isamaleki will be easy for you to pronounce. Isamaleki, that's my name. And I am a lawyer, and but here I came as the president of a publishing house, Miezi, and also I'm the chief of library. So my journey is quite, it's not a special journey because I had a privileged childhood, and I had a father who brought so many books for me when I was very young, and I was growing with books around me, and I had all the books I needed when I was young, and my father taught me to read books earlier and to discover and to know the world through books. That's why I can say there is nothing I can say special in my journey to the books, because I had some privileges, and I was very lucky to grow up in such a family. And I was born in the eastern part of our country, which happens to be also the part where the war is been doing for the moment, and that's where the situation of my country is quite complicated. It is very difficult for us, from me as a Congolese, to talk about that war, because it kind of divided the country in two parts. There is a part where there is no war, the West, and the East is on the war. And there is a kind of, as I said, it's a separation. In the West, we don't have war. I won't say it's a peaceful situation, but we don't have war. And the East is on the war since, 2 decades now, more than 2 decades now. And we can see in the people mind, especially people from the West, they're kind of, tired of talking about the war that doesn't end. We should say that it doesn't end till today. And that war is wearing too many clothes. Sometimes it becomes a kind of ethnical or tribal rivalry, or kind of war between two tribes or three tribes. It becomes also an invasion from another country, and we have all that mixed, to create the kind of confusion. But what must be seen in that case is that people are dying. Children, mothers, young people are dying. And there is no honor in killing people, in killing children, in killing women. That's all I can say about that part, without creating without telling you all the complications around that, where people are really dying in the eastern part of Congo, and it's been over than more than 2 decades now that people are dying in that part of our country. So in the other part of the country, in the west, if you see it from outside, you can be thinking that everything is okay. It's quite okay, and you can see there are musicians that are making music. Fali is making making people think that everything is good in Congo. We are all dancing every day. Which is not, completely false, because we are dancing in Kinshasa. People are really dancing in Kinshasa, while it's buried in the eastern part of our country. Those both things we are doing those both things at the same moment. So that in that environment, we created a publishing house, an independent publishing house. But before, let me give you just a small history about Kinshasa. Kinshasa is a town divided in 2 parts. When the Belgians, the colonial personnel created Kinshasa, they separated in 2 parts. There was a part for the colonial personnel, and another part was where let's say ingenious people were living in the other part. One of the curse of the independence, let me say it that way, but it's not what I think deeply, but one of the curse of that independence is that the elite of our country wanted to replace the personnel, the colonial personnel. That's one of the curses that we had. And if you see the way Kinshasa is built around the part that had been occupied by the colonial personnel. So the town is like, it's spreading around that focal point, the place where the colonial personnel was living. And all the most important institutions are based in that place. Libraries, good schools, even the best house, fancy restaurants. All the best places of Kinshasa are based in that place. That's why we chose to create a library out of that circle. And we create a library, most of the people should be saying out of the downtown. So that the other people, those who were called at the colonial moment the ingenious, to get free access to knowledge, to books, and to our own story. And that's how we created, first of all, a library with our own books, our personal collection of books.
Hello? You're being humble, sorry. You're being modest, as we say. Can you tell, because we talked about this yesterday, can you tell the audience when this started, how many books did you own and did you start with to create this?
Okay. We are 13 founders of the library, and I had over 400 books myself in my personal collection. So we gathered
your friends, you had a friend?
I had like-minded friends
who had how many books?
who had also more than 400. I had a friend who had 1,000 books in his personal collection of books. Yes, so
That's impressive.
Yes, we gathered our books. That's what I said before. I had a privileged childhood. I had many books when I was young, and we gathered our books. And it's about today we have a collection of 4,000 books.
4,000.
Yes,
and they did this during COVID.
Yes, we did in COVID because we had so much time
during
in
COVID.
Yes,
so when we talk about conditions and environments and
Yes,
situations that are difficult, that also means public health situations. So using that energy, as you said, war, but then also during COVID, using people power to set up something that is so powerful. And if I'm remembering correctly, is it the largest collection?
Yes, it's the largest collection of book on Congo and Congo's history.
Period. They did it.
Yes, we did it. And
so
it's a free access library. It's a free access library. People don't pay fee to read those books.
This is incredible.
So that's what we did, and we also created a publishing house to publish my friend and I are really big fans of literature and fiction, And that's how we publish in our publishing house. We publish only fiction, and we have published one novel, and we also have a literary review of, it's an annual literary review. Due to some, inconvenience of my journey, I didn't bring those books, but they.
Next time, you're bringing
But
him back.
yes, but
Yes.
we have a website where
Okay.
those things can be seen. So that's how we created that publishing house and that library too. And we have a cultural space that can hold some of, cultural activities. But the point was to get out of the, let's call it that way, the ancient colony, because the other part of Kinshasa where all the best institutions are based is the ancient place where the colonial personnel was living.
Yeah.
So we moved, a bit things from that part, and that's how we are doing our best to make people discover our own story, told by Congolese, and to read, because I deeply think that one of the tools of freedom is knowledge.
Yes.
And we can get knowledge through books. And literary is, art is one of the best way to teach
Yeah.
people freedom.
Absolutely. I love this. I love that this, and not just that, but the establishment of a library or a bookstore as a form of resistance, right? To
Yes.
purposefully move it outside of the colonial sphere, circle, is amazing. So I want to come back to you, Sofia, and actually, it's amazing that both of you are here today, but especially you being here today is especially significant for you, important. So can you tell the audience what today means, and along the lines of resisting empire and colonialism, particularly when it comes to Russia, can you talk about that, talk about the significance of today for you as a Ukrainian, and how literature and books feed into that for you?
So I will start with my yesterday's experience. I've been to Nikkei Gallery, and the mediator working with us, told us about some symbols of Nigeria art. And as I acknowledged yesterday, that one of the important symbols is a circle of life, the connection with your relatives and people behind you. They give you a power to move forward. So that's why today's event is quite important for me to speak about Ukraine here, because this is a memorial day of people being killed during the genocide in Ukraine. It was an artificial famine created by Soviet Union in 1932-1933. So around up then 4 million people were actually killed. So 4 million.
Wow.
Soviets has closed the villages, and peasants were not allowed to receive the passports, and they have taken off all the food, even hidden in some houses. It was a winter, so it was really frozen winter, really snowy winter, so people were just dying and no one was helping them. So I'm mentioning this really sad event for my country to explain why we are standing for our future, why we are fighting. And a lot of Ukrainians, especially writers, has chosen to stay and to fight because of, we have this responsibility finally to stop the war, to stop this, toxic relationship with Russia, and finally to commemorate all the people being killed in ages, and finally live our free life, because of all of these people would love us to have a free life. Speaking about Ukrainian literature, it's really important when we are talking about Ukrainian history, Ukrainian state in general, because of we were too many years under different empires. I mean, Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was easier. Like all my relatives are from the western part of Ukraine, so life for us was easier. We were able to speak Ukrainian, to read Ukrainian books. But the other part, being under Russia, Ukrainian books were forbidden. Writers were writing something in Ukrainian language, and you know, like. It's known that Ukrainians are collecting money for armed forces, for enemies from everywhere and inside Ukraine. But we have a joke that we have like a huge story of fundraising because of like when Ukrainian books were forbidden, Ukrainian writers were collecting money for bribe for a censor to publish some Ukrainian books. It was kind of illegal, but still they were like a chance to read in Ukrainian. And in Ukrainian literature, like the idea of state was gathered and saved for us. And nowadays, Ukrainian writers are at a different position. A lot of them, both female and male, voluntarily joined the armed forces. So somehow they quit to write, or they are writing some small pieces from the front line, but they are really powerful voices. One of my friends, Irina Chernoguz, she is 29-year-old writer, she is a poet. Last year she received one of the most important Ukrainian national prize for literature. And she is a mariner for 5 years. And during one of her speeches, she told that literature is this connection, you know, like the war and all this reality, like when you see the body of your friend, like explode for the pieces, like it's killing a human inside you, you know. But literature is a way to keep the humanity in you, to have the connection between the generation, between different parts of society. Another part of Ukrainian writers joined journalism and started to write like fiction, and also they became volunteers as well, helping.
Since the war, you mean?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I want to come back to this maybe, I don't know, provocative question. And Rodrigue, I'll bring you in as well, of again, conditions that generate creativity or culture. And it's not to glorify war or oppression or dictatorship, but rather looking at how these conditions can be drivers. And Rodrigue, this is where I want to get into the maybe provocative parts of the conversation. I'm thinking of the discussion actually yesterday of those of you who were here yesterday about talking about democracy and the case for democracy. And a few of you very smart audience members questioned the panel about, well, you know, if democracy is supposed to be about freedom, why is there more and more a march towards autocracy, authoritarianism? The West, the United States in particular, has lost probably all moral credibility right now. But Rodrigue, you and I had an interesting conversation yesterday about Mobutu, dictatorship, and the role of culture and creativity under Mobutu. Can you speak about that and about, I think, basically what was interesting about, well, I'll let you start off with our conversation, and then Sofia, I'll come to you, but that we can't think black and white about what freedom and cultural productivity means, that what happens when there are countries that are under harsh conditions and yet creativity is flourishing. How do we think about that in the Congolese situation?
Thank you, and you remind me the conversation we had yesterday, and that's where, I mean, my country is a bit complicated. Mobutu's era was the most prolific era of, let us narrow the debate to literature, was the most prolific, I mean, the most flourish era of our literature. Our major writers, I mean, our cornerstones, they were born and they became famous. I mean, that era was the best era for them, even for dissidents. even for dissidents. Dissidents and the Mobutu's, I mean the regime supporters, both they reached the highest peak of their productivity at that era, at Mobutu's era.
And this era is around what years? People might-
70s and 90s. You see, I mean, writers. I mean, our major writers. They'll be born in not born, but they became famous and respected at that period. And there were also a literary competition that has been done at that moment. And Léopold Sédar Senghor, I don't know if you know something about him, the president of, the first black president of Senegal, I think.
Yes.
And he was, that competition was created in his honor. And he partially led that competition. And that competition helped us to get one of the best and greatest writers of Congo. And I don't know, just a little story. Léopold Sédar Senghor wrote songs for Taboulé, one of our greatest musicians. He wrote songs for them. He wrote some of his best songs for one of our greatest musicians, Taboulé. So, that's the greatest paradox in our country, because the Mobutu era created the greatest writers, even dissidents, and Mobutu was supporting that part. Was supporting cultural activities for his own purpose. For the purpose of his power to. To help his propaganda, okay, we do agree with that, but it helped artists to create. And since then, since the Mobutu has gone till today, there has never been a public funding at the cultural sector. Never. Never.
So this is what is.
Yes.
This is what is tough to kind of sit with, yeah.
Yes.
That, you're in a democracy. Congo is in a democracy.
And I can say that I won't say that it's. We have democracy as it should be, but we are more free than Mobutu's era.
Sure.
But the production, the productivity, the production of artists is lower than to Mobutu's
why
era.
Do you think that is? Is it a question of just Mobutu controlling the resources of the state, so then being able to fund and pay maybe propaganda or maybe you'd call it a celebration of Congo's heritage and history? What are the conditions today that is making the creative or the cultural sector less productive? In your opinion?
One of the major things is when Kabila set his coup d'etat and he became president, he considered that all the artists, all the writers were Mobutu supporters. And he kept them away. He didn't want them beside him, and he didn't also help them. And what he has forgotten is that those artists, those writers, were creators. And even if they were creating for Mobutu, even if they were creating to worship Mobutu, those creation were arts, and they were, part of our artistic production. And when he kept them away, that production went low. And I think it's one of the mistakes that had been made by let's call it the revolutionary regime of Kabila. And it did not help us. It didn't help us. And that regime did not support the artist.
But he was democratic. The West embraced Kabila, at least at first.
Yes, but that's one of the bad result of that. I won't say democracy, because during Kabila it was not that democracy, but it was different from Mobutu. People were more free at Kabila's era. And when Kabila the Young became president, it also, I mean, he also kept the same way until today. The cultural, I mean, sector, especially literary, works only with, I mean, it's only the private funding that's helped that
So
sector to work.
international development funding, that sort of thing.
Yes, that sort of things, and those funding are not enough to make that sector more vibrant and to make the production as big as it was at Mobutu's era.
Sofia, you wanted to comment.
Yes, speaking about an art and literature during the hard, tough times. So, me personally, I am from the west part of Ukraine. Like, I am like hundreds of kilometers from the front line. And for example, next month, I'm going to visit Kharkiv for 3 weeks because of I received a writer residence there. It's 17 kilometers to actual Russia border. The city is shelling every day. You know, like it was some nights where like around 50 missiles like falling down to the city. But on the other hand, it's one of the most important city for Ukrainian Renaissance in the 30s, for Ukrainian culture and writers. There is existing like the house of Slovo. It was like a house built by Russians, by Soviets, for Ukrainian writers, like still like open its door for different writers, and there is a residence here. Why I'm going there? Because of something really unbelievable is going on there. I can see people creating art, staying in Kharkiv, and it's genius. I can see the exhibitions. I can read the poems and novels written there. And like me personally, like it's like 100% danger. And I'm like kind of playing the Russian roulette, like coming there. But on the other hand, as a writer, as a journalist, I really want to be there, to have this feeling, to have the opportunity, be as creative as people there are. So like, you know, like pressure creates the diamonds. Yeah, so like the time will judge us, like who is a diamond, who's not. But sometimes you want to try this pressure to understand like your abilities.
And again, I mean, that in and of itself also being a sort of a paradox in harsh conditions, creating a renaissance, whether, again, dictatorship, however you want to define that, or war, inspiring people to create, to document, to resist erasure. And, you know, I'm very reluctant to say that only the good arts can be created through trauma and oppression and anything like that. But it is interesting, Rodrigue, both what you said about the Mobutu situation, and then Sofia. I mean, one thing about the Ukraine situation is obviously it got a lot of attention from the West and a lot of support from journalists from around the world and international organizations who began wanting to help the Ukrainian cultural sector specifically in ways that haven't shown up for other countries going through war crimes, going through conflict, Sudan, Congo, Gaza, coming to mind. How do you see, how do you, when people maybe bring that up, that the Ukraine situation and particularly the support, I think, for journalists and for artists and for culture has gotten, at least from my perch in Washington, so much attention. When perhaps, Rodrigue, you know, the situation in the Congo is struggling, a cultural sector that's struggling through conflict. I mean, both of you can respond to this, but again, where I sit, there's a double standard in whose conflict stories we talk about and who we value. Point blank, period. Let's just talk about it. Either one of you, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll talk about it all day.
Okay.
Into tomorrow. We will not go home.
I try to be the first to answer. War is a sensitive topic even in Congo. It's a very sensitive topic, and it's a topic that cannot be. We can't talk about it freely in major mainstream media. It's not very easy. It's not very easy to talk about, and it's a very sensitive topic, and by that you can understand that it's more complicated for writers and also for publishers to publish that kind of story.
To publish about the war
Yes,
and the
to publish about the
situation.
war situation, and also for artists. There is a famous artist in Congo who made art from with we call it in French douille. You see, when you use a gun, you know the other part that falls down.
Oh, the cartridge,
Let's call it.
the case, the shell
In
case.
Sharks, yes, he made art with that, showing using those things as material. He made art with that, showing us first of all, because he did it in Congo, and he collected all those things in Congo. From places where those guns, those bullets had been used. One of the most astonishing thing is that he never. The first exposition of those of the art he created has never been in Congo.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Where
it
was
was
it?
prohibited in Congo. Yes.
When did this happen?
The early 2010.
2010, okay.
2010. Yes, 20. Yes.
And prohibited by the government or?
Yes, the
Okay.
government. That's the government. That's the government. Because we have to align our story on the story of, on the line of defense of the government, which happens to be always in contradiction in what is happening really. So that topic is a quite difficult topic in our country and very sensitive. So you can see that it makes, it helps sometimes creators, writers to be more intelligent to talk about it. It pushes them to create more metaphors, to create, something that cannot directly lead those who are reading those stories to understand that he was talking about war.
So you write around it.
Yes, you write around it, and it's also something that that is narrowing the creativity of artists, those who wants to use that topic or to talk about it. So it's there are both situations. It also helps people to talk about it, and it's also reducing to silence some others. So we have both situations in Congo.
Okay, and Sofia, did you want to comment?
Yeah, because I need to advocate my
Yeah,
proper
sure, of
position. I not to advocate, but give wise vision on a point. Like, may I ask you, before I'm starting to explain you, who knows the song "Carol of the Bell"?
Carol of the Bells, like the
Carol of
Christmas
the Bell.
song.
Yes, from the Home Alone.
Oh.
Actually, this is Ukrainian ethnic song. It was
I
translated.
used to play it on the piano when I was a
Yeah.
kid. It's Ukrainian.
Yes, it is. How it appears in the international, media sphere. It's because of we were trying to build the independent state in 1917, 1921. And Ukrainian core of Košice core come to USA. Actually, they stuck there because of the state has fallen down after the Soviet Union occupied us. But they were singing this song, and all the people around loved it and translated it into English and used it. So why the state has fallen down? Because of we haven't been considered by the old Europe countries as a nation. So the Versailles Agreement, the list of nations, the list of nations are considered to be independent, are considered to be the nations, and Ukrainians weren't there. That's why we've been occupied by Soviet Union. We were struggling and having some partisan movements through the 100 years before we became independent. One of the most genius poet, Vasil Stus, was killed in Soviet concentrative camp in 1985. can you imagine, like Madonna and Michael Jackson are singing at the stage, and like a person, a human being, a genius, is dying in a concentrative camp. Like the last Ukrainian being executed but by Soviets, like the last execution was in 1989. So like it's not so far away in the time. The war in Ukraine began in 2014, and for some years we've been like kind of alone trying to explain like that the war began, and we've been told that there is a civil war, so you are like fighting against each other. So people were following actually Russia propaganda, and you know, like people everywhere, like not everywhere, but in Europe, were trying to put us in the same panels with Russians, like, you know, to have the agreements, like writers should have like a common language. But you can imagine, like, you are living with a man who abusing you for years, and like he actually like beating you, and now you have to talk with him like publicly. So now we've been noticed, but also we've been noticed because of Russia put it a lot of like thousands of troops to Ukraine. They're using all kind of missiles and weapons. Possibly they haven't used only the the nuclear bomb. So this is the last thing. So I think because of now, like it's so huge, we are visible.
Because of it took Russia basically trying to destroy Ukraine in order for Ukrainians, you're saying, to become even noticed by Europe in a way, or above second-class European citizens. Is that fair to say?
Probably the third one.
The third one.
The third one.
And I mean, both of these, like, I know these situations in the Congo and the Ukraine are so different, and I think part of our jobs maybe as writers and journalists is to find the common threads. So as both of you are talking, and even just you all in the room, even what the common threads maybe are with the Nigerian history and the Nigerian experience. And part of that is not just what's happening in your countries and not just what's happening in maybe your workplaces or with the publishing house, but how the rest of the world is reacting or not reacting to these stories. So again, this is, you know, something. I'm sitting in Washington, I call it the imperial core, the new imperial core all the time, and we are constantly talking about again, whose lives and whose stories matter, you know, whose are valuable, and I would also say in the last 10 years, this concept, I think, of colonialism becoming more and more mainstream, at least in the U.S., of talking about of course, in Africa, and I'm a Ghanaian, Nigerian American, you know, who has been grappling with this question of colonialism. Rodrigue, you mentioned this in your beginning in terms of even why you decided to start your library geographically outside. As for both of you as writers, how do you think of this concept of colonialism? Whether it's, I don't know if you would describe it this way, Russian is trying to colonize Ukraine right now, right? And then Rodrigue, you know, thinking about, and you and I were talking about this yesterday, about even the name of Congo is an imposition, is a colonial name, right? So how do you think of literature, colonialism, the marriage of it, the divorce of it? I will leave it to either of you, however you want to interpret that.
Yes, when I was talking with you yesterday about my country, I was saying that Congo has the name of the country. Our country is not something that we have created as a people. Yes, it's right. There is a tribe in our country who has the name of Congo as their name. There is a Congo tribe, and there is a language. There is a language that's related to that tribe, which is the Kikongo. But Congo has the name of our country, is not something that we have created by our own. It's something that we inherited from the colonial person, from Belgium. And what I consider as something, one of the best thing that, the best idea, idea that Mobutu has by, it's not I'm praising him or I'm worshiping him, but the idea of the Zaire, when we became Zaire, uh, that was a creation. We were creating a country. And that idea of creating something that doesn't, come from Belgium, something that we're creating by our own, using our, using ourselves and choosing. Basically, we chose Zaire. We created Zaire, but that project never been completed. So Mobutu became a dictator, and he became president by a coup d'état. He became a dictator, and Mobutu went, and what happened after that happened. But one of, the curse of the colonialism is they take from you your own history. That's what the colonial they do. They take from you your own history, and I always remember. I always bring back the name of Mobutu because we had that idea from Mobutu. Mobutu said we have to write our own history. We have to tell ourselves who we are, where are we going, where have we been from, and that's, for that reason, that's why they killed Lumumba, because when Kasavubu made his speech at on the Independence Day, he has been more, he was not conflictual, he was, modest and moderate. But Lumumba reminded that independence is not a gift, we earned it. We fought for it. And for those words, Lumumba got killed. Because that's all he said. That he said, it's not something that you've given us. It's something that we earned. We fought for it, and we have to remind to our children, to those who are coming after us, that we fought for it. It's our right, and we got it. It's ours. So that also was the idea of, the idea of Zaire. It was creating a country for ourselves. And that idea never been completed, so the mission has been stopped. So that's also why in our library we have a big collection of books about Congo history. Because we want people to know what happened, what has been done, what have we done ourselves to our brothers. We need to know that. And by owning our own story, by owning our own narratives, I think we can create a better future.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of authoritarianism, this screen is screaming at me to start the Q&A and dictating how I'm going to run this panel, and I will submit. So we will open the floor up to questions. Sofia, I want you to still think about these questions of colonialism and writing, but I want to at least open it up to the floor to begin the Q&A. Yes, Madame.
Hi, my question is for me.
Are we passing around microphones?
So, like you said, you took it out of the colonial masters' sphere of influence, even though they are gone. But how do you deal with security? For example, everybody knows the Alexander Library, the one that was burned down, and then their history is lost. So how do you deal with security in the sense of the literature that is in your country? Because obviously you're writing things for the Congolese, you're writing things for your history, you're writing things for your next generations to know that people were there, people fought. But how do you deal with the fact that it is possible that because of what you're doing might not be what the current government wants you to do, that these things might be lost, even in our age of internet and everything, that they might be lost? And it's also to Sofia as well, that security for literature, how do you deal with those concerns right now and the concerns for the future as well?
Excellent
Thank you for your question. And that's where, our country is a bit complicated. Most of bad things that happen to our country happened during Mobutu's era and the Belgium's era. I mean, when we were a colony. So those things, they help the government, the current government's narratives. They want people to know those things, and especially the Kabila's family, because they came as the a revolutionary army and they came to liberate us from dictatorship. So all the books that tell that story of the way that the colonial personnel mistreated Congolese people are welcome. But they don't, they don't support them, they don't help them, they don't neither fight them. So they kind of they let you manage yourself, your own security. So, the government doesn't support us, but they don't also, frighten us about that part only. It's, it's very important to specify, only for that part they don't threaten us, but it's helped their narrative, as I said.
Sofia, how do you think about safeguarding literature and libraries, physical books, physical material?
So since the beginning of full-scale invasion, for 2 years, I was working for Ukrainian Book Institute, and I also mentioned that now I'm Lviv City major advisor. So one of the, I was in Book Institute, I was working for the international department, and one of the projects we actually do, but we do it, the main goal of it, public goal of it, is to spread Ukrainian books everywhere and make the access to people from Ukraine everywhere to have a possibility to read the book. But being honest, it's also kind of security thing because of, for example, a lot of Ukrainians being stuck in DP camps during the Second World War. It means they were staying in some camps for people lose their country, mostly Soviet Unions were trying to take them back, but some of them were succeed, around 200,000 of people were trying to succeed. So they organized a special Ukrainian movement, even a literature movement, even with, they were publishing the book and making the translation. So for example, in a British library, there is a huge collection of, for example, Orwell translation of all these books we received only after the independence because of during the Soviet Union, the most pieces of Ukrainian literature was naturally forbidden. Yeah, but for ages they've been kept in the National Library. So that's that's a way. We are presenting Ukrainian books or to everywhere, and with hope that these libraries will somewhere will save them.
Okay. I saw a question, the gentleman in the purple, and then I see in the front here. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My question, good afternoon. My question goes to Mr. Makaleki. Did I get that? Maleki. All right. I'm following with your history. When you talk about history and colonial history, but history are not meant to be discussed alone. Lessons should be learned in it, and that is why I'm asking you, what is your effort using writing to tell people that even the colonialists are using the people as machinery? Looking at Patrice Mulumba case as a case study, even his people submitted, they danced to the tune of the colonizers to get their own brother down. And that was, even till now, the country is how it is. What is the role you are playing with literature to educate people that they should open their head and come for solidarity as far as colonizers?
That's a good question. Can we take maybe 2 more questions at a time, and then we can answer them in a batch? Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. First of all, my question is directed to Sofia, but I wanted to say one more thing, with all due respect, Karen, when you talked about colonialism as a concept And since we are in a literary space, I think language and terminology is really important. And colonialism, as these guys have clearly shown, is not a concept, it's an experience, right? And I find that the languaging of colonialism as a concept can be very slippery because it goes into the same vein as with critical race theory, right? Critical race theory, it becomes a theory, it becomes something that then is abstract, it's not people's lived experience. And that can go down a slippery slope of them being really attacked. And I'm saying this as somebody who has been attacked for post-colonial research. So just as a note, maybe.
Sure, I can respond to that.
Yeah. And then for Sofia, I'm wondering about the content. And I was triggered by a question that was posed yesterday about how does the current war shape the content and the themes and the topics? Because is it to provide a certain level of escapism as a way to escape the war? Like yesterday when somebody asked this very heightened question of, I'm a woman, I'm triggered, do I need to read more about femicide and violence? What do the people of Ukraine read at the moment? Do they want to read more about the war? Or do they want to read more about their own history, about their own narratives, about where they come from?
Lola, and then we can respond as a batch. And then this gentleman.
Thank you so much, both of you. My question is quite similar to hers. You mentioned that the library has got lots of historical texts. I'm curious to know who wrote them. If they were authored by Congolese historians, or I just want to know who. And to Sofia, I'm interested to know how much effort is being put into the recording what is happening right now for posterity.
Okay. And one more, and then we will respond. We've got 10, 11 minutes.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to this panel since Ake started. So my question basically it would be to the theme. Okay, yeah, to the theme. The theme says finding freedom. At what point do we say that we found freedom? Are we ever going to find freedom? Because I've heard a lot of what we've been talking about today has been about, war. And I can tell you that this goes as far back as, the 60s, 70s? And then now we are in the 2000s. This is 2024. How much more are we going to go to the point where we say, okay, we know what we found freedom, everybody sit back and let us chill? That's my question.
That's a very good question. Okay.
So, sorry, Karen, you can also just contribute to that response.
Okay. Well, first of all, I can respond to the submission about colonialism as concepts, theory, lived experiences. Trust me, I understand that colonialism, I'm a product of colonialism, so it is not just a concept. If I misspoke, I apologize, but that's in terms of, I don't want to also discount the lived experience and that there is post-colonial and colonial theory, right, as far as academic study. The very fact that I'm sitting here speaking English to you all and that I cannot speak my father's language, Tree, from Ghana is a testament to the fact that colonialism is a lived experience for me. As a black woman in the United States, the attacks that I get purely because of who I am and where I come from is something that is part and parcel of my lived experience every day. So, that being said, I think that in terms of how whether it's settler colonialism in the United States, I don't paint colonialism as one broad brush, and I think that is fair. The concept of how it applies in the Russian context to even colonialism in Francophone nations, indirect rule, direct rule by the British, that there are just fundamentally structural differences and that they emerge differently in different parts of the world. So I also I don't like to paint colonialism as just one broad brush, the settler colonialism in the United States obviously being very different than South Africa. So that being said, I don't know if we take the abstract question first about when we, maybe you guys take some of the very direct questions about your work. I like this question about taking lessons from the past. Lola's question about, Ukraine history books, who is authoring them. Also, this question of language. Are they being written in, you moved the books or the library outside the colonial sphere, but are the books in French? Are they in, to discuss that?
That's a raging debate in our country. The language is a raging debate. And my point of view, my opinion on that is French, I don't see French no longer has something that belongs only to French. French as a language became some things that we took in those ashes of colonialism, and we use it also as a tool against what what they did on us from those from the Belgians, and we're using it to tell them what we endured and how we suffered, and it does not longer, something that they can use the way they were using it before on us. They use it as a weapon. We can also use it as a weapon to respond to them, to what they did to us. So I don't see French, I don't no longer see French as something that belongs to French people. And we also changed French. We put our own in that language. That's and I think it's the same with English. The way we speak English in Nigeria, it's different from the other parts.
It's an art form in Nigeria.
Yes, even in Rwanda, they speak differently. I used, when I talk to people from Congo, when they ask me, how is it Nigeria? How do they speak English? I used to tell them they don't speak English, they speak Nigerian. It also looks like English, but it's Nigerian. Because I had some difficulties to understand what they were saying, so I said it's Nigerian. Something that they brought using using English words and words from their own mother tongue, so they created something that looks like English, but it's not English. That's all.
So in a way, that's kind of to this gentleman's point about finding freedom through language, in the sense of creating your own something new from what was given.
Yes.
That's part of freedom, creativity.
The way that Congolese speak French is different from the way that, people from Ivory Coast speak French. It's quite the same. We understand each other when we speak French. We're using French words, but we add, things from our local environment, our local languages in French. And during the colonial era, it was impossible. Language was a tool that were creating difference between those of our black people who were educated from indigenous who did not study. But today it's something that became, democratic, and everyone can speak French in his way and being understood without feeling superior or inferior to someone. And the question asked about the lessons from colonialism is the first thing I think, and I said it before, I said it at the beginning, I think one of the tools that help us to get freedom is knowledge. Ignorance leads to death, I think. I deeply think ignorance leads to death.
True.
And knowledge leads to light and leads to life. We have to know what happened. We have to know where we come from. And songs that we sing from centuries that we narrated from our fathers are not enough. We need also all those stories that have been told by writers. And one of the specific thing about Congo is that the Catholic Church is one of the major church in Congo and is more present than the state itself. You can find a Catholic church in every corner of Congo, And sometimes in corner where the state has the representation of states can be, you can miss sometimes the representations of the Congo states in some places, in some corners of Congo, but you will find the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church is the most, is the most network of distribution of books in Congo, because they are everywhere. And Congo is a big country. 2 million square kilometers. It's not, something small. It's the second largest country of Africa. It's a very big country. So being present in all those corners gives you a kind of, a lead on what is said and what is read. And that's something that's used the colonial personnel to destroy our own story. And we use it also to restore our own story by using that network to make all those books written about our country to reach people from all those corners where the Catholic Church is set. So that's one of the things we do. And as I said before, knowledge is a tool that we use to make people know about ourselves. And that's why our library is free. It's a free access library. People can come and read a lot of books written on our history. And those books were, unfortunately for most of them, especially the history of our country, those books were written by the Belgium and the colonial personnel. That's unfortunately our context. And it's not something that we can change in a few years, but it's something that we're working on. And our country is just, 60 years old. It's a very young country.
Absolutely.
Yes, from the view of the country, it's a very young country. But we're working on changing those narratives by telling our own story ourselves.
All right. On that note, I feel like, Sofia, you want to respond? And again, maybe part of this question of finding freedom.
I'm ready to answer all of them.
All of them.
Yes.
We'll expand. Exactly. I'm going to resist the authoritarian screen.
I'm so sorry. I'll take 3 minutes, not 10, but 3. So, to give you a general vision of what is going on in Ukraine now, is we are not, I would love not to call this post-colonial process, but anti-colonial, because of. Actually, being honest, we just realized we had only few scholars since the independence, 33 years ago. We have only 2 or 3 scholars being actually involved in post-colonial studies. We had more people being involved in feminism or in, in general, national studies, but not with the post-colonial option. But since the beginning of full-scale invasion, we realized that everything, this is about us. Russian was trying to forbid our language, our churches, our culture at all. So we have a right to be only, dancing silly man or woman, doing some stuff, but not being able to be organized, to make the decisions. Actually, now, I'm my postgraduate period, so I'm preparing myself to my master degree, actually in post-colonial and anti-imperial studies in Russian literature. So I'm reading a lot about this now. So I found it quotes from Russian writers where they were calling Ukrainians white slaves. So Ukrainians, mostly from the villages, we've been a property of Russians for 2 centuries at least, with no rights, with 1 or 2 days free, with no money being paid for the work, and it's shitty, for the word. So now, and also even during the Soviet Union period, Soviet Union seems to be, the collaboration of different countries and nationalities building some future together. But actually, it was really Russia-focused thing. The main language was Russian. Everything should be in Russian. If you would love to make some career, you have to join the party, first of all. Secondly, you have to speak Russian. So you have no future if you're speaking Ukrainian. So now we have this new focus on our history, like we are
Any way to think about it.
yes, so that's why Ukrainians started to read more than we read before the full-scale invasion. We had the poll proves it that it's increasing, and mostly we are like reading a history book. On the one hand, classic literature, but on the other hand, like like when you live in the war, like sometimes you come off crazy. So a lot of Ukrainians like went for the mindfulness practices, for meditation. So these books are also very popular, and for how much we have to fight to achieve the freedom, as much as needed, actually. Like, as much as needed, like for ourselves, for our children, our grandchildren finally be free. So, yeah, this is my speech.
What else is there to add? But by any means necessary, right? I think on that note, we will wrap up. Thank Sofia, Rodrigue. Thank you.
Hello.
Merci. How do I say thank you in Ukrainian? Yakuyo. Yakuyo. Thank you all. Thank you to Ake for having me and bringing us